The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
She is a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.
You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it. You didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White.
Right.
You should shut up and do the job.
I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry. Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but both of them.
The movie that nobody wanted to see, and I mean that seriously, nobody wants to see this movie. Ticket pre-sales are nowhere near what Disney was hoping for. Let's just say if you wanted to buy tickets for the 9 p.m. show tonight, wherever you are in America, you'd be just fine.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
Now, for Disney, as you probably remember, all of this publicity, the Zegler interviews, the Daily Mail leak, caused a lot of unexpected, for them anyway, pre-production problems. People weren't supposed to see and understand just how unwatchable the new Snow White was going to be. It was supposed to be, kind of a surprise, but now there was no hiding it.
So now, as the movie comes out, the two biggest stars in this movie can't stand each other to the point where they can't be in the same room, which forced Disney, in their infinite wisdom, to cut back on doing a formal premiere.
But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright, they're not that smart, and we see that because they can't come up with any new IP. Why not write some new movies? You guys sit around, you have billions of dollars, they keep going back and rewriting the classic.
But I think the movie bombed because it's bad. Those CGI little people.
This is truly she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
Man.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense. And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback, and you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they are scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
You guys, Disney's new live-action remake of Snow White debuted this weekend, and it's an even bigger dud than anticipated.
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
Given all the behind-the-scenes mayhem, I expected a Frankenstein's monster where scenes would be stitched together. I think a lot of these live-action updates are really hard to watch. They've really done so much stepping on rakes over the last few months with this project where the box office is just not going to recover.
Brace yourselves for the most mind-boggling Hollywood meltdown of the decade. A story so packed with controversy, cringe, and colossal financial stakes that you'll wonder how a single actress could nearly topple the mighty House of Mouse. Let's rewind the reel to when Disney, in a move that seemed like a guaranteed win, decided to remake its 1937 masterpiece, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
The latest victim of really bad ideas is finally here. The magical Disney DEI woke equity version of the 1937 classic, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But because the word dwarves is now apparently controversial, Disney took that part out of the movie altogether. And now the movie is just called Snow White, which would be like Disney taking lions out of Lion King, or mermaids out of The Little Mermaid.
The public went wild at the thought of a modern take on the sweet, innocent princess who ate a poisoned apple and got saved by true love's kiss. Easy box office gold, right? Well, if easy means hiring an actress who reportedly trashed the original movie on camera, ignited a social media firestorm, and turned loyal fans into furious critics before the trailer even dropped, then sure, this was easy.
I say, if I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
Enter Rachel Zegler. a bright-eyed newcomer who soared onto Hollywood's radar in Steven Spielberg's glitzy West Side Story remake. At first glance, she seemed like the perfect pick to don the iconic blue, red, and yellow ensemble. She could sing, she had that sweet Disney vibe, and her star was very much on the rise. But as insiders claim, behind her angelic vocals lurked a fiery and, some would say, downright ungrateful attitude, one that allegedly kicked off the entire Snow White saga from fairy tale dream to PR nightmare.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
The drama began innocently enough. Zegler gave interviews describing the beloved 1937 cartoon as outdated, weird, and in her words, really behind the times, especially concerning the prince, who, she suggested, basically just stalks Snow White.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Cue the outraged fans. Legions of Disney diehards who had grown up loving every warbling note of "Someday my prince will come." They pounced on social media, calling Zegler's remarks a slap in the face to the animated classic. Like a match tossed into dry brush, the backlash erupted.
Every Disney movie is about a woman waiting for a man, okay? Sleeping Beauty, she is comatose until a man comes to kiss her and wake her up. Rapunzel, she's up in a tower, taking biotin, hair vitamins, waiting for a man. This is what these women are
Cinderella.
doing. Is it the best? Yes, Cinderella. Is this the best message to send to young girls? No, but you don't have to rewrite and rework the classics. Come up with something new, you guys.
Outraged tweets screamed #NotMySnowWhite and #FireZegler. Memes mocked her side-eye commentary, and Disney's core audience demanded that the House of Mouse find an actress who actually, likes Snow White. Insiders say that was just the beginning of the meltdown for Disney's PR team, who allegedly scrambled to muzzle the growing maelstrom by curbing Zegler's interviews.
Sweetie, you're being paid $25 million and you're on TV saying your bosses suck. So Rachel Zegler, maybe keep your mouth shut.
Of course, she wasn't done talking. Far from it. She doubled down, continuing to emphasize how this new Snow White had no interest in the prince and would instead be all about self-empowerment and independence.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with updating a classic for modern values. But when you stand up at a press conference and basically call the original story a fairy tale about a creepy guy sneaking around, you might be crossing the line with fans who regard Snow White as hallowed ground. That's when the sarcasm, jokes, and pitchforks came out. Disney, apparently thinking all publicity is good publicity, soldiered on. But the red flags were everywhere. Then we got that messy situation with the dwarfs.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, why are we doing that? We've hired a Latina actress to be Snow White. That's progressive. But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards. And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, we're going to add magical creatures. And then the picture of the magical creatures leaked online, and everyone just had an absolute blast laughing at it. So the magical creatures are here in the movie. The CGI dwarfs are here in the movie. It works to a degree, but it's certainly going to be a financial hit for Disney, that's for sure.
After all, audiences had grown up with Doc, Grumpy, and Sleepy, not weirdly proportioned magical friends that looked like they'd escaped from an experimental 2 a.m. streaming project. Sources claim that behind the scenes, Disney was freaking out. The film was already rumored to be well north of $200 million in budget, and the star actress had repeatedly ruffled the feathers of the very people expected to pay for tickets.
Every time she opens her mouth, It's crisis mode when it comes to Disney.
Rachel is literally the star of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim. And that's the sort of mentality that is just poisoning people's minds. Like, she acts like her life is so bad.
I truly do believe that. There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings.
As if that weren't enough, older footage emerged of Zegler complaining about working on West Side Story, the Steven Spielberg film that practically launched her to stardom. She moaned about the stress, the schedule, and the pressure, painting it as an ordeal rather than a dream gig.
She was plucked out of obscurity by Steven Spielberg. All you say is thank you, Mr. Spielberg, and you keep saying that for the next 50 years.
That's when the internet collectively asked, is she allergic to gratitude? Because apparently she had no qualms about biting the hand that fed her twice. By now, the meltdown had soared to cosmic levels. Fans wondered aloud how Disney brass could be so blind. Did no one watch Zegler's interviews before casting her as one of the most iconic princesses in history? Didn't the studio realize they were turning a beloved fairy tale into an accidental roast session of the original?
She told Variety that I'm only responsible for what I feel, and then I'm responsible for how I act upon it, which makes no sense at all.
As premiere day crept closer, Zegler suddenly performed a total about-face. She popped up in tearful interviews claiming she really did adore the 1937 classic and had always loved how Snow White's heart was her real superpower. She talked about her admiration for the character's bravery, her sweetness, her innocence, and insisted that the new film was in the spirit of the original after all.
It's just a total nightmare for the studios. So now she's trying to sell like, oh, I love Snow White. I love everything about the whole story. Here she is more recently trying to change the messaging. This is actually Wednesday, 39A.
Louder, ready? 3, 2, 1.
Snow White!
Hi! This is beautiful. You look lovely.
I love you.
I love me?
So much.
I love you. Thank you so much for being here. And to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her,
she's
and
emotional
her
now.
superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting. That's what that was.
Social media critics, however, called her out for what they believed was blatant backpedaling. Acting, as one commentator put it, but not the good kind. Disney tried to hype the premiere with star-studded events, but the promotional tour felt half-baked. Rumors say execs were terrified Zegler might drop another ill-advised soundbite, so they kept press opportunities on lockdown. Meanwhile, fans were scouring the internet for any new glimpses of the CGI dwarfs, hoping they might somehow look better than in the leaked images. Spoiler alert, they did not. Then came the fateful opening weekend, which critics described as dire, bleak, and one of Disney's worst modern performances.
Disney, despite losing over $1 billion on their last 4 movies, as they continue to shove woke politics into people's faces who just want to go to the movie, laugh, cry, and go home. Look, people don't want to be lectured when they're watching a movie, and they certainly don't want to be told that they're bad people. But that's what Disney continues to do.
The film only managed to squeak out around $43 million domestically, which some studios would call respectable if the budget wasn't rumored to surpass $200 million.
It had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
Internationally, it performed equally underwhelming, bringing the total to a mere $87 million in that critical first weekend.
This movie's cost them $200 million and counting, and instead of America being excited to take their families, I've got kids, we'd normally be excited to go see the remake of Bashful, Doc, Dopey, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, and Sneezy. Disney is looking at another woke flop with magical creatures instead of dwarves in a movie about 7 dwarves.
Suddenly, analysts everywhere were calling it a bona fide bomb, particularly painful for a studio that probably expected an unstoppable juggernaut. The big question on everyone's lips was, did negative publicity actually destroy Snow White's chances, or was it doomed from the start by misguided creative choices? Many pointed to what they saw as the real culprit, disrespecting the source material. Disney had a goldmine in the simple, wholesome fairy tale that introduced the world to the very concept of the Disney princess. Yet, according to fans, the studio tried to fix what wasn't broken, ignoring or outright mocking the elements that made Snow White timeless. Zegler was also singled out for cutting remarks about old-fashioned romance, alienating audiences looking for a nostalgic experience. Even the dwarfs fiasco contributed, with some viewers feeling the new film wasn't Snow White at all, but a half-hearted reimagining that nobody asked for.
And the latest victim of really bad ideas is finally here. The magical Disney DEI woke equity version of the 1937 classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But because the word dwarves is now apparently controversial, Disney took that part out of the movie altogether. And now the movie is just called Snow White.
But the fiasco didn't end with the final box office tally. Social media lit up with a fresh wave of parodies as fans spliced together clips of Zegler bashing the film with scenes from the original 1937 classic, overlaying comedic subtitles like Snow White and the Seven Facepalms. Others posted comparison pictures, the lush, hand-drawn animation from decades ago, side by side with the new movie's occasionally questionable CGI, concluding that technology might have advanced, but the heart, ironically, was gone.
These big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
It's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
Insiders rumored that The Meltdown had Disney execs calling emergency meetings, possibly rethinking future live-action remakes. Some speculated that projects like Lilo and Stitch or The Aristocats might be put on ice until the studio figures out how to avoid a repeat of the fiasco. The lingering question, did controversy help or hurt ticket sales? Typically, bad press for a massive studio can sometimes turn into morbid curiosity at the box office. But here, it seems like audiences were more turned off than intrigued. People either stayed home altogether or saved their money for streaming, hoping to watch the train wreck from the comfort of their couches. Reports trickled in that theaters in major cities were half empty on opening weekend, not a good sign for a beloved Disney princess property that should have brought families in droves. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler became something of a cautionary tale. Hollywood gossip blogs claim that producers are taking a closer look at her interviews before inviting her to new projects.
That audiences walk away from this film with an understanding of the true meaning of fairness, of what it means to be fair in this world. There is a message that's been carried on for almost 90 years now from the original animated classic. That is, fairness is what is within. Fairness is to do with your heart, the way you treat the people around you, and it has nothing to do with what you look like, and that's the misunderstanding between Snow White and the Evil Queen. I think it's such an important message, and the way that Disney has elevated it and brought it to this new audience is very special.
Sure, she's talented. She has pipes that can belt out show tunes with Broadway flair, and she's undeniably photogenic. But if a star is going to drag the property they're supposed to be promoting, even inadvertently, studios might see it as too big a risk. She's now associated with the actress who allegedly torpedoed Snow White, and that kind of label can stick. Some fans, of course, believe Zegler was simply expressing modern feminist views, that she was trying to update a creaky storyline for a new generation. They argue that change is inevitable, and that if she stepped on a few toes along the way, it's because some audiences resist any retooling of nostalgic favorites. But critics say there's a difference between respectful modernization and outright mocking the film that turned Disney into a cultural institution. Then there's the Gal Gadot factor. For a hot minute, it seemed like the Evil Queen's star power might overshadow the controversies. Gadot certainly put on her best wicked smile, bringing cinematic flair to the role. Yet even her presence, Wonder Woman playing the vain villain, couldn't shift the conversation away from Zegler's quote after quote after quote. Let's face it, when the biggest question from fans is how can anyone be jealous of Snow White when Gal Gadot is right there? You know the marketing has failed. Ultimately, Snow White's big screen reemergence turned into the cautionary tale of how not to produce or promote a live-action remake. Instead of Once Upon a Time, it felt more like, this time we really messed up. For Disney, a studio once hailed as an untouchable money-making titan, losing tens of millions, if not more, is a sobering sign that fans will not automatically show up just because you slap the word Disney on the poster. You've got to respect the classics, cast an actress who embodies the beloved heroine's spirit, and maybe, just maybe, avoid turning the dwarfs into awkward CGI placeholders. And so we arrive at the end of this not-so-fairy tale fiasco where the princess wasn't saved by her prince, but instead faced a storm of swirling controversies and sour box office returns. Disney presumably learned the hard way that a combination of off-putting comments, questionable marketing, and disregard for the original magic can doom even the most iconic of princesses. But what do you think? Was this movie doomed from the moment Rachel Zegler trashed the cartoon that started it all? Could Disney have salvaged the project if they'd nipped the controversy in the bud, or cast someone who respected every frame of the 1937 masterpiece? Let us know your theories in the comments, because this fiasco leaves us with plenty of questions, like whether Disney's next big project will also crumble under the weight of behind-the-scenes missteps. If you enjoyed this dramatic deep dive into the self-inflicted downfall of a multi-million-dollar remake, or if you just want more juicy Hollywood scandal coverage, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our next expose on Tinseltown turmoil. Because in the realm of showbiz, you never know when a dream project will turn into a disastrous nightmare. And around here, we're always ready to spill the tea on every last juicy detail. Until next time, dear viewers, stay curious, stay caffeinated, and remember, in Hollywood, sometimes the best advice is don't bite the apple, especially if it's being offered by an actress who seems suspiciously eager to critique everything that made that apple iconic in the first place.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.